Previously on The Jump.
Word on the street is you are the leading candidate for the coaching job in Detroit. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that's going?
Well, I've had a couple of great meetings. One with the management, with Ed Stefanski, who's a great GM.
Great guy, man.
Great guy.
Shout out to Ed.
Love
him.
He's big time, and he's the main reason why the job is very appealing, along with this guy just shooting the ball right now. And also Andre Drummond and Reggie Jackson. But had a great meeting the other night at Tom Gore's home in L.A., a very dynamic owner, very impressed with him and his leadership, his vision. But again, we're talking now. Nothing is finalized or done.
Oh, hey, look at that. We begin today's show with a Woj bomb because Dwayne Casey, after the other day talking about Detroit on our show, has agreed to a 5-year deal with the Pistons to be their next head coach. We're going to discuss it, of course, huge story, later in the show. And I think we all agree it's a great hire for Detroit, but on the flip side, do we like Case taking that particular job?
I think Detroit isn't that bad of a job.
I'm not saying it's a bad job. I'm saying you like him taking that job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah? You like him taking the Detroit job?
I do. I think it's a great job. I mean, he's shown that he's a player coach, and he got some young, very enthusiastic players, Drummond, Jackson, Blake Griffin. I really love this job for him.
Oh, very nice. Well, welcome back. To the job. As you saw on that screen roll, we are back in our lovely studios in L.A.
I missed this mug.
The Hollywood sign there. We brought you a mug on the road. Don't cry, poor. Amin Elhassan alongside 6-time NBA champ Scottie Pippen. Scottie is part of a huge anniversary today. We will get to that a little bit later. But first, so the Warriors won another title. Everyone's had their exit interviews, and the NBA has ground to a halt for another sleepy summer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No, my friends. Yeah. There was a time it used to be like that, but that time has long passed. I'd like to officially welcome you to the league's second season.
Oh, yes, Elmo.
And I hope you brought some sunscreen because the action is hot and the takes are hotter. Coaching changes? Yep. Second season, we saw it just this morning with Dwayne Casey being hired by the Pistons. And may I remind you, Casey's old job in Toronto is still up for grabs. We initially figured the Raptors wouldn't fire the guy who'd coached the team to its best record ever without another guy firmly in mind. But, well, we appeared to have figured wrong. Toronto's coaching search is still going on with candidates as near as the assistants on the end of the team's own bench to as far as Lithuania. Seriously. Of course, the coaching hot stove has nothing on the real lifeblood of the second season, player transactions. Players moving teams via trade, via the draft, via free agency.
What is that?
Yeah, the transaction game is about to be in full swing, and unlike the game on the court, it's all the more spicy because every team can play all at once. Remember last summer? Things got hot early when Danny Ainge performed his jewel thief routine on Philadelphia, trading the number 1 overall pick, which became Markelle Fultz, for the number 3 pick that turned into Jason Tatum, and another first-round draft pick, lately a high one. Then we had Chris Paul shocking everyone by opting in to his Clippers contract and then authoring a trade to Houston. But that, my friends, all might be child's play compared to this year. Because you may have heard 200 to 300 times just today that LeBron's free agency is coming. And if he does hop teams, the whole point would be to form a new super team somewhere else. That could mean joining a ready-made roster like the Sixers, or it could mean joining forces with the likes of Paul George. And what about Kawhi Leonard? How much of a contract extension will the Spurs offer him in the next couple weeks? And will he take it? Or will the Spurs be forced to start looking at trade options for him instead? Could we see, I don't know, Kawhi, PG, and LeBron on the same roster? That would be something.
Yes.
Stay tuned. The second season has just begun. All right, so we're jumping in. LeBron's free agency. The free agency game we're playing is, if I were LeBron, I would blank. Scottie, you're up first. If you were LeBron, what's the first thing you would do?
If I was LeBron, I would stay in Cleveland.
Really?
Wow!
Yes. You've made it to the finals for the last 8 seasons. You've proven that you can get there alone as one player. I think you only get a couple pieces to come join you, and you're back in the finals again. I think at this stage of his career, it makes more sense for him, for his family, to stay in Cleveland. I don't want to see him in another uniform. And I think at this stage of his career, he can't really go and help a young team.
Okay.
He has to play with veteran players that can win. And I think it's just more suitable for those players to come join him.
So you think that if he went to, when you say go and help a young team, the young team is Philadelphia,
I'm
right?
thinking
so
Philadelphia, a team like that.
Why do you think? And look, it's a point a lot of people have brought up. I mean, he'd be hanging around basically with what, 18 to 22-year-olds.
Yeah, well, I
think
when you look at the bigger picture, the 76ers are not ready for the NBA Finals. They were not even ready for the Eastern Conference Finals, as we saw. So those players still got a lot of growing to do. I think there are players like Paul George that could come and instantly help a guy like LeBron James.
In Cleveland. You'd like to see that happen in Cleveland.
Yeah, I think LeBron just needs one other superstar, you know. I think Kevin Love has served his purpose in terms of being with him, and maybe there's still some years that they can play together, but I do
you'd want
think
Kevin
that
Love to stay, even if a guy like Paul George came.
Exactly. I do think there's a place for Kevin Love still on that roster, but I think you need a player that can create his own shot, a player that can create opportunities for other players. Kyrie was a great fit for LeBron, as we saw, but when you lose a guy like that, a guy that can't go get you 20 points, it's a big void in a team like Cleveland, because there's only so much LeBron can do, and we saw that in the finals. But when you run up against a good team, great play doesn't really matter.
Now, we should point out that there are gymnastics they could do to sign a guy like Paul George, but it would take a lot with the salary cap and all that stuff.
That's what I would say. When you say Cleveland, I mean, you're right, and I think another guy, particularly a two-way guy like Paul George, would help. But what about Cleveland as a front office and as an ownership gives us confidence that they can even pull that off? Right? That's my thing when it comes to the Cavs. It's like Dan Gilbert, he put his hands on it, and we see what happened as soon as he put his hands on it. They went from a team that we thought could at least give the Warriors a run for their money to barely making it to the finals. Now, for me, I got to go with Philly. And I know what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying. This first year, probably they wouldn't be ready, but him being around would escalate their development so much quicker. And once they get to that level, then we're talking about finals for 5 more years, 6 more years, 7 more years. As he becomes older and has to take a lesser role, those guys can then carry him.
But I also see that putting LeBron James in a situation that's going to stunt some of the guys' growth on that Philadelphia
that
scene.
Could happen.
And you don't really want to do that, especially with a guy like Ben Simmons. I mean, his future, to me, is to play like LeBron plays.
Right.
And if you take the ball out of his hand, you're really limiting his growth.
No, I agree with you. I think that there's a way. Let me put it this way. I agree with you, and I think that's a risk, but that's not necessarily what's going to happen. Yeah. And they have to have that in mind. But you're right. It could go wrong in that sense. Yeah. You could stunt their growth by being too dominating and domineering.
Well, I mean, I keep saying if I were LeBron, I would wait for the other pieces on the chessboard to move around because you don't know. You don't know. I mean, where Kawhi is going is a huge thing. If Kawhi is staying in San Antonio versus if Kawhi is potentially, I don't know, coming to L.A. Like, I mean, there's just a bunch of things going on with that. And Paul George, I'm pretty sure that, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that Paul George and LeBron have already been talking. They've got each other's cell numbers.
Well, I mean, Rachel, I just want to say this. For LeBron to win a championship, he has to be a part of a super team.
Yes.
And Philly is nowhere near a super team. And I don't think they're going to be considered a super team in the next 3 years.
Ooh,
well,
3 years?
This goes back, well, it's funny
when you're talking about KD, when you're talking about Steph Curry, when you're talking about Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Iguodala, that's a super team.
But I don't think there's any combination of guys that can live up to that. You just got to get in the zip code. You're not going to be living next door, but we're going to stay in zip code.
I like Joel Embiid game, but I think where the game is going today, if he was to run into the Warriors in the finals, he would have to sit and watch the game.
Oh, man.
Wow. Well, I do think to your point, Scottie,
about
your original point about Cleveland and everything, I'm going to have a hard time watching LeBron switch teams if he switches to a team that does not look like it could at least compete for a title. Because to my point, it's sort of like, if you don't think whatever move you make, and again, I don't know what all the pieces on the chessboard are going to be, so maybe he could. But if it's not a team where you legitimately say they could at least give the Warriors a run or the Rockets a run in the NBA Finals, I almost say, well, why switch teams? Why not do the legacy play in Cleveland?
Counterpoint.
Yes.
He just took a team that we all recognize as not very good. Not only to the finals, But 2 of those games were extremely close games that went to the end. I know they got swept.
I think it's hard to say that if Boston had its full squad, we would expect that to go.
All I'm saying is what Commissioner Silver said on day one of the finals. Says it's not a parity thing. It seems to me you take this guy and you put him on any team. And they're competitive. They're contenders. So.
Yes, you're right. But can they beat the Golden State Warriors?
Probably not.
That's the point.
Speaking of the Warriors, Scottie is a member of a dynasty. I'm curious to learn how you dealt with the critics who said that your Bulls championship run was bad for basketball, because we are definitely seeing that. All the takes for the last couple days. The Warriors have ruined the NBA. Do you compare that at all to what you guys did? Because you guys had that stranglehold for so long.
I do, and I think that it's great for basketball. Yep. I think when basketball is being played the right way, when it's a good team, players are playing the right way, there's no animosity, there's no selfish play out on the court. That's the kind of basketball you want to watch. And, the Golden State Warriors bring that to the table night in and night out. They got great players, and normally when you put 4 or 5 great players on one team, there's going to be some animosity, there's going to be some selfishness, but you watch these guys play, you can see the enjoyment, the enthusiasm, that they really love playing together. And not just on the offensive end, but on the defensive end. I think that's really where you see this team really come together. The offense is just easy money for them.
Yeah. When people said to you guys, like, oh, this isn't fair, what was your response?
You don't hear those things. You're so focused that.
Well, that's true. You guys didn't have Twitter. These guys hear that stuff. You probably didn't hear it as much.
You're so focused and looking forward to the next season that it's enjoy the moment. But when the season starts,
you care right there. Like, you guys are ruining basketball. Y'all didn't care.
That's what it should be.
Yeah, that's exactly what it should be.
I mean, these guys are, this is a great scream, because these are the people, you might not have heard of Scottie, but all these guys in Indiana, in New York, especially on the Eastern Conference, it felt like, come on. Utah, of course. And then here's the sort of common day, current day equivalent. Although these guys have gotten the double whammy of playing in the LeBron era and the Warriors era.
You're getting knocked out both ways. The two things. One is, dynasties are good. Anyone who says dynasties are bad for any sport, you're lying. We watch the NFL to see if the Patriots are going to lose. We watch the baseball in the late 90s to see if the Yankees were going to lose. We watched basketball in the 90s to see if the Bulls were going to lose. That's what we were rooting for. Right. It didn't happen, but we still rooted for it, and that's always great for getting attention. But the other thing that Scottie said that I agree with so wholeheartedly, the Warriors play the right way.
Mm-hmm. That's the key.
If you're a high school coach, you want people passing the ball like that, the ball move. You can't guard one guy one-on-one because everyone's moving and playing the right way. And defensively, they give it their all on that end. That's such a great example for how basketball should be played that I think that's a good thing for basketball.
And that's how we, as basketball players, our game, that's how we win over fans.
Yeah.
Because people that don't see the game or don't understand the game, and when they see a team like the Warriors or the Bulls in the 90s, they get pulled into that type of excitement.
Absolutely. It's fun. Well, we're going to see a lot more of the Warriors. In fact, tomorrow at 3 Eastern, noon Pacific. Check out The Jump. We've got coverage of the Warriors parade. We will take you through every angle as Golden State celebrates its 3rd parade in the last 4 years. No speeches this year, though, they said.
No
which
speeches.
I think is going to be kind of interesting.
They didn't pay. They said it cost too much to have the speeches.
We'll get into all that tomorrow. There's some funny details here. Coming up, Amin is going to hand out slices of flame pie to the Cavs for getting swept in the finals. But first, this is our distant replay brought to you by Garmin. This date, 2006, courtesy of the Flash.
Is it a free throw? Is it a free throw?
He didn't even fall to the ground in some terrible collapsing moment as usual that year, right? Remember that year he was like a slinky on the ground at any moment? Shaq had to keep picking him up.
Ryan! I don't know how else to say this, so I'll just say it.
What is it, Linda?
I think we should see other people.
Are you breaking up with me? On a roller coaster?
Well, we do have a lot of fun. Maybe we should stay together.
An emotional roller coaster? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I just need a little me time.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Our next WNBA matchup Wednesday, 7 o'clock Eastern, ESPN2. Washington Mystics taking on the Connecticut Sun. You can also watch it live on the ESPN app from anywhere.
Does Chiney play for Connecticut?
And yes, detail with Kobe Bryant, his intense NBA film breakdown streaming exclusively on the app. You can watch previous episodes. You can download the app. You can get a free trial of ESPN Plus with this, which is pretty good. I'm just saying. All right, time for Make or Miss. First up, Make Salsa. Lance Stevenson is the gift that keeps on giving people. He's dancing the salsa in front of a mirror. Because if you thought Alex Rodriguez in front of a mirror was good, this is better.
I'm telling you, there should be a rule. He should be on every team in the playoffs.
I think he did a decent job. I'm with you, Lance. Go for it. You do you, my friend. I like it.
I like the flavor.
Miss dribbling. This guy gets the steal, uses his heelys, throws the oop on the break. I mean, it's kind of a travel, right, Pip?
Nope, just like the NBA.
No, come on.
Just like the NBA.
See, if I saw a dude do this in the pickup game, I'd just leave the gym right there. I'm not trying to pump.
I think this is all staged, don't you?
Of course it's staged.
Right. So, and yet here we are doing it, so it worked. Sorry,
the turnover itself, the turnover is a giveaway.
See? Summer. We'll do it all in the summer. Make Invisible, which is maybe the best title of a Make Miss on this show ever. Shouts to our producers. Jimmy Butler is on vacation, did not bring a date with him on the gondola, and, went on IG and talked about his invisible girlfriend.
I like that, JB.
Do you think there's Tinder in Venice? What do you think?
I'm going to need to talk to his boy, Bernie.
Right?
Bernie, come on, man.
It's fine. And these are other romantic things Jimmy could do alone. Is that what's
y'all going into a contract here, Bernie? You have this man talking to invisible people.
Oh my God. So good. Make support. Swaggy showing up in Oakland without a shirt, which some people were like, oh, he's just copying JR. But JR gave him a seal of approval. Yeah. Did you ever congratulate someone that beat you, Scottie? Because that's what JR did here.
No. I was far out of town.
Right?
Well, the thing is because he recognizes they have a lot of similarities. He said they don't want people like us on top. He's saying the guys are. Right. So I get it, man. It runs deeper than just opponents and all that.
I'm on the record. I love JR. I don't know if I would be putting myself in the spotlight anymore this
year.
But he wasn't lying.
I love JR.
He wasn't lying when he told y'all that if anyone could go through that and not care.
He's correct. He was absolutely right.
Yeah, because he's done it before.
Right. Speaking of JR, because I have a feeling he may come up in this segment, it is time for Blame Pie. Yeah. We do this when somebody loses out in the playoffs. The Cavs do not escape because they were swept. So, Amin, let's talk about, fresh out of the oven, who is getting which slices of your Blame Pie
piping
today.
Hot. Okay, first slice goes to LeBron James, and you're saying, Amin, he averaged like a triple-double. He was amazing. How can he get a slice of Blame Pie? He gets it. Even though I understand why he did it, you got to get it for breaking your hand.
Yeah.
We gave Amari Stoudemire a hard time when he punched a fire extinguisher. We got to give you a hard time, LeBron. And I know why. And everyone has a limit, and he broke. But, man, you can't break your hand, not in that circumstance. Not even knowing you lost that game so close. That means you actually are closer than you thought.
I don't think it hurt him, I mean, look at his numbers.
He didn't take jump shots, though.
His numbers from further out were even far twos and threes were a lot worse.
I did notice in the game
he did have a triple-double
that he was determined to go to the basket. Yeah. But I like when he played that way because he's unstoppable.
Well, he was still great, but he could have been greater.
We're going to discuss the hand injury.
Well, 3 is always better than 2. So, it would have helped if he could.
So he gets one slice right there. Second slice, I know I just got done praising him for not caring what people think, but JR, man, I gotta give you a slice of this pie right here, man. And it's not just because of this flub that we've seen a million times. We're going to see it again. And it's not just because he lied about it later, talking about, I knew we were up. He played poorly. And this is the second straight finals where he's played poorly. And to me, the one thing JR can't be is a guy who doesn't make shots.
Right.
I like that he plays defense. I like that he's kind of a...
Look, we had Mike Miller say on this show last year during the finals when Kyle Korver missed that huge three in Game 3 of last year. He said, when you play on a LeBron James team and you are a sharpshooter, and this goes to JR and Kyle Korver, frankly, for this season, this finals as well, your job is to make those threes. That's it. You've got to make them. There's no excuse. There's no percentages. Mike Miller said you in an NBA Finals when LeBron's on your team and he kicks it out to you, you have to make that shot.
Yeah, and that's totally true. But I think also JR is really being pushed into a corner. To me, he's a guy that's not a real heavy minute guy. And I think in this situation, they've been forced to play him in a lot of situations where you probably wouldn't have him in the game. And you've seen some of the mistakes that he's made, and it's cost him some games. But also in that game, you can give him 2 slices of pie. Other guys should have called timeout. It's not just on JR in that situation. You saw LeBron trying to guide him in some way, but there's still 3 other guys. You got Tyronn Lue. Were you sitting on the bench watching your guy shoot those free throws, or were you standing there anticipating or expecting a miss? As a coach, you got to be expecting the worst thing is about to happen and hope for the best.
Especially with the ball in that man's hands.
Well, the fact that JR was playing those minutes at this point, whose fault is that, Amin?
Well,
that the roster looks like that.
I'm glad that Scottie brought it up. Scottie said he was put in a position where he had to play those minutes because they had no other thing. Bring me another pie, because the rest of this pie is going to Dan Gilbert, but this pie is not enough. I need a second pie.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. You getting 2 pies.
First of all, producer Carlos had another pie.
Yes, we got 2 pies here. Go bring on camera. Here we go. So 2 of those slices here.
Y'all have too much free time in the morning.
The remaining 6 slices of this pie plus all 8 slices of this pie is for Dan Gilbert. Too much in sports analysis. We want to blame the star player. We want to blame a role player. We want to blame the coach.
Yeah.
It's the owner's fault. I'm going to tell you right now, any team you look at and you say, why is that team so terrible? Why can't they get right? Is because of the owner. He's lucky he's got the greatest player of this generation on his team to make them look better than what they are. Because if LeBron wasn't there, his incompetent actions, criticize the behavior, not the person, would shine. He's the reason why you say JR is in that position. Why? Because Kyrie Irving ain't there. Why isn't Kyrie Irving there? First of all, you had a great general manager. You decided to let him go. You decided to try to do the trade talks on your own, but you can't keep mouths shut like your former great general manager did. So the whispers get back to Kyrie. Kyrie is upset. He wants to leave. And instead of trying to work it through like your great general manager would have done, what do?
You didn't have to trade Kyrie Irving. You didn't have to. I've had a bunch of Cavs people come up to me in the last 2 weeks and say, Rachel, you don't know the whole story. Kyrie really wanted out. Kobe Bryant demanded a trade on the radio.
On camera.
On the radio. And guess what? He retired a Laker. You didn't have to trade him. He had 2 years left on his deal. I know he threatened to get surgery. I know those were the reports, and they seem to have been confirmed.
He got surgery anyway.
If he got surgery at the beginning of that year, it's not like they were amputating his leg.
No.
He would have been back by the finals. And by the way, call Nike and see if they would have let him take himself off the market for a whole year. That's a bluff on that.
And one more thing also, if you had to trade him for Isaiah Thomas, guess what? When you find out he's got a hip problem, maybe you want
boycott the trade.
Maybe you want to rethink that trade.
Or get more. They went back to the table, and at that point, all they could get was another second rounder. They've already made the announcement in Boston that Kyrie was coming.
Dan Gilbert, I hope you like pie. We got 2 types for you here. Apple, and it looks like a cherry over here.
Make it strawberry.
Is it? Oh, man.
It's tough. I mean, look, this is my issue with this. And look, Dan Gilbert has a right to do this.
Yes.
He has a right to remake his roster. He has a right to let go of Griff.
Absolutely.
He has a right to make these decisions. He, with the Kyrie trade, decided he wanted to hedge and get extra pick for next year. And that way, if LeBron did leave him, that was part of the important plan. He has a right to make all those decisions. I can sit here and have my opinion about it, but it's his team. But as you say, if those are the decisions you make, you then have to be held accountable. Because I am so sick of people saying what happened to this Cavs roster. Nothing happened to it. A tornado did not hit Cleveland.
No.
They made decisions.
And to me, that would be the only reason LeBron would leave, from that frustration of Kyrie.
I don't have enough.
Really,
don't have enough.
Hey, I'm enough. I can still get to the finals.
But I need help.
That was sort of, I'll show you. But now he should, if he decides, he should walk. But I wouldn't leave.
All right, so I want to get back to the hand injury because you brought it up. And after Game 4, he revealed he had been playing with that fracture in his right hand. And there's two things going on here. There's the fact that he did it, and he did cop Amin to what you said. He goes, it was self-inflicted, it was in a moment of anger, and I think he'd take that one slice of pie for doing that because it's not, in retrospect, how he would like to have handled that moment. But then there was a second issue of this was disclosed after the series was over, and then he wore the wrap on his hand to the press conference. That got a lot of attention too. Where are you on all three of those things?
I'm with whatever happened and how it took place.
Right, people get angry.
I think throughout the series, you don't want to show or even deal with the media about the injury, but you definitely don't want to show weakness to your opponent that you got a bruised hand or a broken finger
Scottie,
or whatever.
If you found out that the guy you're guarding has a broken hand, what are you doing?
Well, it just depends on situations in the game. You're definitely going to push him to his weak hand. You're going to make him use that.
What are you doing?
You're going to give him a hard foul when you get the opportunity.
Every single time.
Not to be dirty, but you're going to give a guy a hard foul.
That's part of the game.
And not to say that Draymond is a dirty player, but believe me, if he would have went to the bucket and Draymond knew that he had a bruised hand, he was going to give him a hard foul.
Swiping hard
it's
every
only
single time.
You're only stopping 2 points.
Right. So I think everyone who knows basketball agrees that it was totally reasonable for them to keep that close to the vest through the series. I guess the next question is the fact that it came out right after the finals loss. Should it have come out at all? And should he have worn the wrap to the press conference?
My thing is this, and this is the hardest question to answer because only a handful of people on this earth know what it's like to be him and be scrutinized for everything you do. Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right.
But I felt like that's not something that he should have said. Ty Lue should have got up and been like, that guy played with a broken hand this entire series, the last 3 games of this series. But when it's him saying it, not that he's lying or anything, but people take it a different way. People take it a different way. It sounds like an excuse that he's making, even though it's actually something that happened and he took, like you said, he took the blame for it.
Well, certain players, I would say yes, you're probably right. But I don't think LeBron is being characterized as a player that makes excuses. He always shows up to play. He always lifts his teammates. So he's not the guy that's going to walk in and start discussing about his hand. I think, from my perspective, someone from the media noticed it and went at him about it. And he had to go ahead and elaborate on the situation. But as a player, when the battle is over, you want all your wounds to heal, and you want to patch up all your scars. So this was one of those situations that LeBron is not going to the training room the next day.
Right.
The season is over.
Right.
Do what you got to do, and I'll go in here and deal with the press because he's going to have to face the music anyway.
Well, see, I kind of think it's a combination of what you guys said because, yes, I think you're right. And anyone knows how the logistics work. The way it works is they're in the locker room, they get any post-game treatment, they get their ice, they get any wraps, they get anything they need. Then they move toward the press conference room, and then they go from the press conference room to their cars, to the bus. That's sort of the progression of it. However, I will say, because he's LeBron James, because you know that everybody is watching every little move, and I do think people are looking for him to mess up in that way, or looking for him, now he brings out the rep, like all of that stuff. This is the one, again, it's a lot to ask someone to be over perfect about dealing with every potential criticism.
Yes.
I'm not saying he should have, but if you really wanted to fend off this particular potential criticism, yes, you could have gone from the locker room to the press conference room, and then either gone back to the training room to get your wrap, or go home where we know he has an extensive training setup, where his trainers have been working on him at his house this entire playoffs for different reasons. If he said, hey, I'll just do it at home, somebody would have come to LeBron's house to do it at home. I'm not saying he should have had to have done that. There's certainly an element of hey, this is how it works. I don't need to do some special thing just to fend off the yelling people on TV. I get that too. But if you wanted to absolutely fend off all of the optics issues, he could have done that. Because you could have foreseen that when you show up with a wrap after you get swept, some people are going to...
it's the hardest job in the world.
It is.
It's LeBron James.
Yeah, it is tough. All right, coming up, Kevin Durant won Finals MVP over Steph Curry. The panel might not agree with that decision. I voted for KD, so we're going to have a conversation. Stay tuned.
You know what he's saying.
Kevin Durant receiving Finals MVP for the second straight year. He had 20, 12, and 10 in the clincher. That would be a triple-double. The vote for Finals MVP was 7-4 for Durant over Curry. For the record, I did vote for KD. And I do want to say this. There are some years where I have felt, this is my third time voting, there are some years I have felt like this is really clear, and if you voted for someone else, you don't really know what you're talking about. This was a legitimate, tough decision in the moment for me. I completely think if you voted for the other guy, you have plenty of good reasons. So I hate those basketball conversations where we pretend if you make one decision, the other is trash.
Will they allow you to split your vote?
They will not. But that doesn't mean that anyone's backtracking. Like, I think I had to make a decision, and I definitely will stand by in this conversation my decision. I just think it's interesting. It's a nuanced question.
It's a good decision, but
yes,
I think Steph was deserving as well. I feel like in Game 4, even though KD had a triple-double, I felt Steph was just unbelievable.
He was going for it. Hit 37 points.
It was a game where I felt like KD sort of deferred to allow Steph to get the MVP, even though he still stumbled into a triple-double. That's just how great KD is. You know, he wasn't trying to be offensive-minded in that game. He really deferred his offense and allowed Steph to kind of take over the game. But something wrong with the voters. They didn't see it.
Yeah, I look, you're right. Either way, we can't walk away and be mad at KD's MVP.
No, not at all.
I would have voted for Curry.
You would have voted for Curry.
I thought that he was the driving force for them to win three of those 4 games. And I think that, everything that happens in Golden State is because of him. But at the same time...
That's not what the vote's for. The vote is not for who's most important to this team throughout the year.
What is the vote?
Games. But even
the
for
vote
those
is
4
who
games,
played the best in the 4 games of the finals. That is it. That is what the 4 games are for.
But even what I just said, okay, so apply it to just those 4 games.
Yes.
I think he's a driving force behind all the success they had there. Now, at the same time, as you like to say, does this really matter to Steph?
Yes.
Absolutely not.
Right.
I think it matters more to KD than it does.
But can I just say this? And you weren't voting at this time, but in 2015, when Andre Iguodala won MVP,
I love that.
You're telling me, and Steph, I think, averaged 26 in that series.
Yes.
Like, I don't see the pattern.
Right. I get it.
LeBron James averaged almost 40 points against this man. That was a defensive MVP.
He was asking during the break about why Iguodala won MVP, and I said, well, I think a lot of people, I didn't vote, but a lot of people voted for the defense on LeBron, and he goes, I didn't get voted to Finals MVP for my defense.
Where's my Finals MVP?
Yeah, I mean, LeBron averaged almost 40 in that series, so I don't know if it was for defense.
Right. Well, look, again, there's different kind of things that come into play every year. I would say this about KD to kind of answer your point. I agree. I mean, Steph had some incredible games in the series. Obviously, Game 2 was crazy. I think the timing of KD's Game 3 was one thing that played a really big part to me. That was a point that if the earth had turned with that finals and LeBron had come out and they had been able to win and the series would be 2-1, a lot of things, the whole course of the finals could end up being different. And KD is the one on a night where Curry could not hit the side of a barn except for the very end when they left him completely open. That KD stepped in, and it wasn't just that he did that in that timing, because I think timing is so important when we talk about like who came up big. It's that he did it with a near perfect basketball game. I think that was the best game Kevin Durant has ever played, considering the timing and the circumstance. 12 of his 15 shots were contested. 4 of them were from 30 feet out or more. No team has had 4 shots like that.
I think you made the right decision.
Well, what's your...
I just want to...
I just feel...
That right there, that was a contested shot. But George still can't contest Kevin Durant.
Was just as much deserving as KD, but KD he was truly the most dominant player in this series.
Your contested shot thing is not okay.
No, I just don't like... With the cameras call contested shot as someone in your vicinity.
Exactly. Right.
But if I'm guarding KD, I could be sitting in his lap. That's not a contested shot.
You're going to blame him for being tall?
You could even foul
I'm not blaming,
you're probably not going to...
Pretty much, yeah. No,
affect this shot.
Unless it's the elbow.
But I will say again, and you're right, I say this over and over again. Whether Steph Curry ever wins a final MVP or not, doesn't matter. Because if he does, it will only be the 5th or 6th thing you ever say about him. The man has already accomplished so much. If you're a guy like we work with Chauncey Billups, Chauncey Billups, it mattered
That was
that he
the
got a
pinnacle of
Finals
it.
MVP. That is his
Paul
highest
Pierce, same thing.
individual accolade as a player, and it underscores to people looking back on the records how important Chauncey was to that team, to that era, to that title. It is important he was Finals MVP. Steph, again, it's going to be the fifth or sixth thing you mentioned about him in his Hall of Fame induction speech. Does not matter. He's going to count rings. That's what everyone else should count too. Here is what The Jump recommends today. Speaking of KD, he will appear on Jimmy Kimmel Live tonight. His first national TV appearance since winning his second straight MVP, second straight title. You know it's good. Jimmy gets those guys. It's always good. They're loose. They're happy. It's going to be fun tonight.
Maybe it was takeout food. The Bulls' Park City dwelling in Utah does not have room service, but at 5:10 Utah time, Michael got to the arena. A touch of the flu after sleeping all day. No doubt, though, the four-time Finals MVP would start. As for his teammates, well, how about a wake-up call? Steve Kerr, it's Tony Kukoc in the back with the pass. One of 8 Bull turnovers. Howard Isaac swiping it to Chris Morris. Give him the hoop, the harm, give him 11 points. Jazz up 14. Phil Jackson needs a hug. Scottie tried to pick up the slack. An ill facial on the mailman. Must be jelly, because jam don't shake like that. Scottie, 17 points, 10 boards, but with MJ on the bench, Bulls down 13 after 1 in the second. Michael blowing up. Ron Harper the steal to Jordan, who tells Hornacek, peace. Mike had 17 in the second quarter. Then vintage Jordan, the misdemeanor steal, one of 3 steals he had. Sick dribbling behind his back to Pippen. Pippen, no, Michael. Oh, yeah. Michael in the third quarter, an ice pack, only 5 total points in the 3 third quarters in Utah. But in the fourth, Jazz up 3, Jordan, Trey, money. He came in shooting only 17% from 3 land in the playoffs. Game tied at 77. After the whistle, Jordan on the bench looking absolutely ill, and I'm not talking ill as in good. Minutes later, though, Jordan tells Russell, hey, yo, it's Michael, not Michelle. He had 15 in the fourth. Michael trying to hit the second free throw, does not. But Jordan sick and everything, fights for the rebound. Out to Pippen. Pip to Mike. Michael, can't you see? Sometimes your threes just hypnotize me. Despite being sick and not being able to walk, Mike had 38 points. No on the 3. Stockton with the ball. Scottie, very intelligent foul. Stockton shooting 85% from the free throw line in the playoffs. Misses it. Misses the first, effectively ending the game. Michael could barely put his arms up in the air. Unbelievable game by Michael Jordan.
Oh, man, the late Stuart Scott. We miss you, Stuart, with the iconic highlight, right, ladies and gentlemen. Here is Phil Jackson's reaction to the flu game. Quote, this was a heroic effort, one to add to the collection of efforts that make up his legend, and we are so lucky. We're lucky to have Scottie Pippen with us every day.
Too.
But here today, on the 21st anniversary of the Game 5 of the 97 Finals, the flu game, although maybe we call it the food poisoning game. We'll figure that out in this conversation. Series tied at 2 apiece for people who don't remember. Game 5 in Utah. Scottie, when did you first learn that Michael was sick?
Well, we all knew kind of at our morning sort of get-together. Wasn't really a shoot-around, but we would meet and just have breakfast together. So we all knew, and it was kind of thrown up in the air whether or not Michael would be playing. But
so you guys thought he might not play?
Yeah, well, some of the guys did.
Right.
But it was one of those situations where really it was a 50-50 chance that he may or may not play. But knowing Michael like I did and the years that I spent with him, I kind of knew he was going to make an effort. And, come game time, he showed up. He was on the bus and pretty much did his same routine. You could see that he was real sluggish and laying around. So I just felt like I'm going to have to give him a little bit of a lift to get through this one tonight.
We saw in the highlight, and Stu Scott says that, you were very aggressive early, that you knew that you had to sort of set the tone because he would not be able to in the same way.
Yeah, I did. And, I could just see it in his eye. He was weak. And, I just wanted to be more offensive minded and stay aggressive. I got on the post and was really trying to do the things that I could to keep us going early, and knowing that Michael, he had always been our closer. So I knew down the stretch I was going to need some of that Jordan to come out, and some of his heroics. And, it was just one of those games where he finally was able to find himself and, get that second win. And once he got going, it was one of those games that you just want to be a part of. You just will never forget how he was able to find such energy and such desire to win that game for us.
What was he saying to you guys throughout this, early in the game, leading up to the game?
You know what? Michael wasn't saying much. He just had this look like he was living in his own world. And then, he wasn't even being aggressive offensively as the Michael that I have known or come to know. But throughout that game, you could just see he started to feel it a little bit. And as always, once he started to feel it, we just flooded with the basketball. But, he was very quiet, didn't say much when he went to the bench. He was just kind of in his own world. And for guys who've never played with Michael, I've played with him, so I've seen these moments where he kind of shunned everybody out.
Right.
And that was one of those moments where he was just trying to gather himself and just, stay in the game. We thought at any moment he may go to the locker room or puke up on the floor, but he does it out. And you can see in these photos that I didn't care if he puked up on
Right.
me.
We're like, let's go.
Get it done.
These pictures, I asked the guys to pull the still pictures because there's sometimes where video is better, obviously, but sometimes I love it when the still picture just captures the moment. You basically carrying him off the floor. Tell me what
it was easy.
like.
He carried me for like 11 seasons.
Very good.
But no, it was great. Me and Michael, we had a special bond, and we had been together for so long, and it was just one of those games where it was one of the most important games of our careers. And
he's clinging to you in this moment. I've never seen him. I have never seen him like this before.
You know what? I felt that at some moment he didn't really know where he was at. He didn't know what he was doing or what was going on, because I think he was probably medicated a little bit and trying to fight the bug and trying to deal with trying to catch his breath and trying to stay focused.
What happened when you guys got in the locker room right after you walk off the floor?
He wasn't sick anymore.
Oh, come on.
Wait a minute. What do you mean?
I'm just kidding.
Because you're going to say that, and I can just see the internet going crazy.
He was exhausted. The series wasn't over yet, and really it was time for us to start trying to put that 48-hour treatment in him, because we were going to be right back on the court. So we had to make sure we get a lot of fluids in him and get him ready for Game 6.
Food poisoning or the flu? To this day, what do you think?
I think it was probably the flu.
That guy was there.
Michael get up. Well, back in the day, he got up every morning, played 18 to 36 holes of golf. So he probably caught the flu out there in Salt Lake, getting up, playing golf early.
You heard Stuart
It all worked out.
Say at the beginning of that highlight, they didn't have room service, so he had to get food delivery the night before. Up next, the Pistons hiring Coach of the Year, Dwayne Casey. Coach of the Year finalist, Dwayne Casey.
No, he's going to be Coach of the Year.
Does that change expectations for Blake and company in Detroit? We will discuss. I love you being on the show, Scottie.
Thank you, girl. I love being on this show.
This is so good. So good. Tomorrow at 3 Eastern, noon Pacific, check out The Jump. We will have live coverage of that Warriors parade and take you through every angle as Golden State celebrates its third parade in 4 years, which is not bad. We told you at the top of the show, Dwayne Casey has agreed to a 5-year deal with the Pistons. Do you like this move for both sides?
I do. I'm very happy for Coach Casey, the land back in the league. I think he's been great. He's a player's coach, and I think he got some great pieces in Detroit to work with.
Yeah, I agree. I think people look at Detroit as not a marquee job, but they've got a talented front court in Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond.
Yep.
And I think Blake's passing ability really helps a player like Reggie Jackson, who's a shoot-first kind of guard. I think the playoffs is not out of the ordinary for them.
First of all, the feeling in the NBA was that they underperformed this year, right?
Absolutely.
So therefore, you want to take over a team like that because then you can go up. I do think that they have the talent to make the playoffs next year, especially in the East. He's great at player development. This team could use some player development.
Yep.
Oh, that's good. I also think, look, I understand that maybe of all the jobs out there that might be available, but in the next 2 or 3 years, maybe, this one won't be the most attractive, but there's only 30 head coaching jobs in the NBA.
You got a 5-year deal.
You got a great deal out of it. And at some point, like last year, there was no head coaching movement.
Yeah.
So you don't want to suddenly find yourself be sitting out for 2 years. I think it's great he took this job.
Stanley Johnson is a guy to keep an eye out on.
Yeah, player development, right?
Take a big leap, yeah.
There you go. That's it from LA. We will be back tomorrow. We got the Warriors parade for you, so come hang out. Sports Nation is next, though.
I gotta go to
See you then.
Right now.
Oh, bye, Amin. He's going to go.